Hey, what's up everybody, and welcome back to another episode of News Dose, where I give you all of the latest news in the gaming world. And today we got some really big Xbox news. February's Xbox Game Pass lineup was revealed alongside the PC Game Pass lineup, and we now know what the mystery port on the back of the Xbox Series X is. While in the meantime, Phil Spencer had some very interesting quotes about PlayStation and Nintendo that raised more than just a few eyebrows. But the big one that I'm really excited about is that we may be getting some big reveals in 2020 as Xbox may be revisiting several fan-favorite Xbox worlds. Could we possibly be seeing more Rareware franchises return to Xbox, or could it be something entirely different? So we'll talk about that here in just a moment, but there is a few other things we're going to go over as well, including Sony is shutting down a first-party studio, another AAA game is being ported to the Nintendo Switch, Rockstar's co-founder is leaving the company, and more, so stay tuned for all of that. To kick off the episode though, let's first talk about this Xbox stuff, as there is quite a lot to go over here. The first of which is that Phil Spencer had some very interesting comments about Nintendo and PlayStation that more than a few people, well, they seem very bewildered by it. Though honestly, I don't think anybody should be, and I'll explain why. So in an interview that launched on technology publication Protocol, Phil Spencer was asked about cloud gaming and their competitors, and this is what he had to say. When you talk about Nintendo and Sony, we have a ton of respect for them, but we see Amazon and Google as the main competitors going forward. That's not to disrespect Nintendo and Sony, but the traditional game companies are somewhat out of position. I guess they could try to recreate Azure, but we've invested tens of billions of dollars in cloud over the years. And when people first read this quote, I think it kind of fanned the flames for console warriors, as people have kind of looked at this comment and are just kind of thinking this sounds ridiculous, as PlayStation, it's huge in terms of gaming, and Nintendo for that matter as well, but that's why we're going to dive into this comment made by Phil Spencer. You have to remember that this comment is very specifically talking about the cloud infrastructure, which, as Phil pointed out, they have invested billions of dollars into Azure up to this point. This is not something that either Sony or Nintendo are capable of. Microsoft is a very large company, and one of their key pillars is Microsoft Azure, their cloud infrastructure. In fact, Sony even partnered up with Microsoft to use Azure for PlayStation Now in the future. That means Sony is a partner to Microsoft when it comes to cloud gaming, rather than a competitor. And then of course, Nintendo hasn't even attempted to go in this direction of cloud gaming just yet. And if they do, they'll likely have to choose between Microsoft, Google, or Amazon. And this is why Phil Spencer is saying that he views Google and Amazon as more of a competitor than PlayStation or Nintendo. See, fans often think that console sales is the main priority to success, and that was true at one point in time. Even today, the numbers of consoles sold is very important, but it's also not the only important factor. Right now, Xbox is looking at the long term, which they believe xCloud will be a big part of that future. They're also trying to push consoles, Xbox Game Pass, Xbox Live, and are even selling their games on PC. They have several options for consumers and avenues to making money in gaming, and xCloud will be one of those key pillars in the future. That doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to be this year or next year or even the year after, but somewhere down the road, xCloud will have more importance, and they view the two biggest threats as Amazon and Google in this regard. Of course, Xbox is facing against PlayStation in console sales, but again, this is not the only piece of the puzzle, and Microsoft believes there is a lot more gamers out there beyond just consoles. I myself also got to try xCloud myself recently, and it worked flawlessly for me. I'm sure this varies person to person, but nonetheless, Xbox is giving options. Whether you want to play on PC, consoles, or through xCloud, they're giving you that option. What do you think about what Phil Spencer said though? I mean, do you like it, or do you think he's wrong here? And if so, let me know what you think in the comments below. Now the next bit of Xbox information we have is what I found to be very interesting, because Insider Klobrille, which does have a very good track record when it comes to Xbox information, is claiming that a few Xbox first-party studios is revisiting fan-favorite Xbox worlds, and we will get big news about it this year. Now that is incredibly exciting, and I do trust Klobrille. He was the guy who leaked the Obsidian Studio acquisition months ahead of time, or before anybody else was even really talking about it. And I know he doesn't claim to be an insider, but he definitely gets his information somewhere, and it's pretty accurate too. So the question now is, what fan favorite Xbox worlds could we see, and by what developers? Well, I think the Initiative is one studio that really stands out immediately, considering Phil Spencer just recently teased they may be working on some old reboots, and we also know they are going to be talking about a game this year. I'm thinking Perfect Dark is very possible, but another game I would expect to see make a return is also Killer Instinct, though I don't think that would be by the Initiative. I know Killer Instinct isn't really that old, as we got it on Xbox One, which in my opinion is the best fighting game I've ever played, but I do think we will see another Killer Instinct on Xbox Series X. I still don't know who could be developing it, but Klobrille is talking about first-party studios here. I've said this in the past, but I wouldn't be shocked if Xbox built a Killer Instinct studio, as they already have a KI internal team. Another possibility would be that it is coming from the Xbox publishing team, which finds third-party developers to work with. This is how games like Sunset Overdrive, Ori and the Blind Forest, as well as the upcoming Tell Me Why comes to Xbox. So maybe they are working with somebody on a new Killer Instinct. Of course, Klobrille could be talking about several other franchises as well, though. Rareware has a ton of old IP like Banjo and Conquer, but I'm always hoping for a new Banjo and Conquer every year to only be disappointed, so I'm not yet willing to hype myself up on those unless we get some more information. I will say this though, Double Fine would be a good studio to work on a new Conquer game. They have a great sense of humor with their games. They're highly creative and are one of the best when it comes to making 3D platformers. It could be a great pairing if Double Fine decided they wanted to do a new Conquer game. For now though, I'm just happy to see Psychonauts 2, that game looks phenomenal. It could, however, also be some IP that nobody is really expecting. We know Xbox wants a Japanese studio, so if they somehow manage to bring Lost Odyssey back, I know that would be a huge, huge deal. Ninja Theory also has the old Kung Fu Chaos IP that was on the original Xbox. But we could probably speculate about this for days. But what do you think? What is some fan favorite Xbox worlds that you would like to see return? Let me know in the comments. Also, do you remember that leaked picture of the Xbox Series X that was popping up on the internet a few weeks ago? Well, it showed all the back ports on the Xbox Series X, and we of course knew what most of those ports was. You have the power, HDMI, USB, and so on and so forth, but there was one mystery port that there was a lot of speculation about that we just didn't know what it was. It was just a big rectangle, and at the time some people thought it was a debugging port, while others thought it was maybe some kind of expansion slot. Well, if you were one of those people who thought it was an expansion slot for more memory, then you were correct, as Brad Sams did some digging around, and his sources who are close to the Xbox is saying that it is an expansion slot. As to what kind of memory this expansion slot will take, we still don't know. It very well could be a proprietary hard drive similar to something like the Vita, granted, hopefully not as overpriced, or maybe they will allow you to just insert a new NVMe solid state drive. In a way though, it almost feels like memory cards has returned, which takes me way back to the original PlayStation. I'm glad Xbox is doing this though, and even though there is still some questions regarding this, and hey, we don't even know if this is to replace the solid state drive that comes with the Series X or if it's just an expansion. The solid state drive that's with the Series X very well could be just soldered onto the motherboard. I myself kind of expect that this will be an expansion, but we do at least know what this slot is used for. Now, Xbox also announced the February Xbox Game Pass games for both console and PC, though honestly, it feels like they always add more games than what they claim at the beginning of the month. Regardless though, it does seem to be another great month, with the console getting Final Fantasy XV, Wolfenstein Youngblood, and Death Squared. The PC version will have the same titles, but swap Death Squared with Death's Gambit. Both gets a little death though, of course. If you haven't played Final Fantasy XV yet though, please do so. It's an amazing game and one of the best JRPGs on the market right now. I know it was a bit of a polarizing game when it first launched, but it has improved a lot since that point, and honestly, I thought it was even a very good launch game. That's just my opinion, but I really liked it. So yeah, go do yourself a favor and check out Final Fantasy 15. Moving on though, we do have other things to talk about besides just the Xbox, though I will say the next two topics are a little bit more unfortunate. Sadly, Sony did shut down one of their first-party studios, which is the Manchester studio. And if you don't recognize what this studio is, that's because they never released a game. The Manchester studio was born in 2015 and was expected to develop AAA games for the PlayStation VR headset. But it just unfortunately never seemed to have worked out, and Sony sadly did close them down as of yesterday. As a supporter of virtual reality myself, I wish we could have seen what they were working on, but it does seem like Sony has had some issues with their studios working on virtual reality, or at least so far. I mean, this could just be a big coincidence, but PlayStation London, the studio behind Blood and Truth, had some reductions in 2018. Gorilla Cambridge, which worked on Rigs, another virtual reality game, they shut down. Evolution Studio worked on Drive Club Virtual Reality, and that was also shut down, and now you have the Manchester studio shutting down before their first release. I'm hoping that isn't a trend going forward, but I will say this. I hope everybody affected by this lands on their feet quickly and finds new jobs. I mean, it's just always sad when you see a studio like this shut down. The next bit of unfortunate news comes over at Rockstar, as the co-founder Dan Houser is leaving Rockstar. This actually is huge news because in many ways he is the mastermind of several big hits at Rockstar, including the Grand Theft Auto franchise. You have Red Dead Redemption and Bully, to name just a few. See, he is one of the key writers of these franchises, which, let's be honest, has been brilliant in Rockstar games. I mean, Red Dead Redemption 2 was just phenomenal in terms of its story. Now, there is other writers for these games as well, but without a doubt, Dan Houser was a big part of Rockstar's success and the high quality of their games. What I ask myself now though is, what will Dan Houser do after he leaves Rockstar? I mean, he is worth like $100 million, so he could easily retire very comfortably. He could also move over to indie development, which could be very interesting. I, however, do imagine several publishers and developers are going to be calling him up with big bags of cash. I could even see publishers like Xbox or even Sony trying to build a brand new studio around him. As long as Google doesn't grab them up, I'll be okay. I really wouldn't rule out, a publisher trying to build a studio around him though, but if he does leave gaming for good, he had a great career and I'm sure fans will miss him going forward. Now, the last thing I do want to talk about, just real briefly, is that yes, Nintendo Switch is going to get another AAA port. Saints Row 4 has now been announced for the Switch, and it will be $40 and is set to release on March 27th. The price doesn't seem too bad here, and the wait isn't too long either, but I really do like the trend of getting some of these bigger games ported over to the Switch. Let's keep them coming. Anyways though, that's it for this episode, but if you liked the video, don't forget to hit the bell notification and subscribe button for more content just like this. Peace out.